Coming up, we're going to be talking about why you should be trying to live the life you are uniquely designed to live. And then we're going to talk about how to start doing that. Let's go. What's up, y'all? My name is Josh, and I'm so excited to be able to come and hang out with y'all, having some crazy good talks. I hope your week was going well. My week has been going well. I hope your week's been going well. Nothing too crazy on my end. And I am excited to kind of get into this conversation here and just get on talking about what we're about to get into today. I am excited to talk about this. I am passionate about this of what we're about to get into because this is something that I continue to navigate through. So I'm excited to start start talking about it. I'm excited to start talking about it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get right into it. How to create the life that you want. How do you create the life that you want? That's what we're going to be looking at today. Now, if it's your first time joining us, we're so excited that you're here. We're going to let you know what's coming up. If you've been here before, you're going to kind of start to know what the flow of how things are going to look today as we jump into talking about this. So we're going to start by talking about why this is important. Why is it important to create a life that you actually want to live? Why is it important to live out the life that you were designed to uniquely live out? We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about the how a little bit. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit of how I start to think through this idea. So why is it important for us to be living and trying to create a life that we want to live, that we're excited to live? Now, I think two things I want us to think about as we start thinking about this. Number one, if we're not living a life that we've been created uniquely to live, and what I mean by that is all of us, when I say that, all of us have different skills, different talents, different passions. All of us have a different wiring that we are able, in a skill set that we're able to bring to the table, right? So all of us get to express that in life, and that looks different for each and every one of us, right? Some of us have the mind of an engineer, and we have an engineer job, and we show it, and we use our talents and our skills in that way. Some of us are more creative and have an artistic mind and may draw or paint or do music or whatever the case may be. But all of us have different expressions. We've all been gifted. We all have a talent set of things that we can bring and contribute to the world. And it is important for us to figure out what that is so that we can start contributing in those ways. And here's what happens if we don't. Here is what happens if we do not do that, right? Because we have the option not to do that. And here's what would happen if we don't do that. Number one, we get bored. We get bored. Now, Brene Brown has a definition of boredom that I really like, so I'm actually going to read it for us right here. And it says this: boredom is the uncomfortable state of wanting to engage in satisfying activity, but being unable to do it. Eek. That was a mouthful right there. I'm going to read that one more. I'm going to read, just in case you missed that. I want you to digest that real quick. I'm going to pause. Boredom is the uncomfortable state of wanting to engage in satisfying activity, but being unable to do it. You see, sometimes being bored can be good for us, right? Sometimes being bored can be good for us, especially nowadays. We live in such a world where it's just like we can be distracted by so many things. There's so many things that can keep our attention. So sometimes it's good for us to be bored, actually, so that we can actually be creative. We can start to think about other things. Like boredom can actually be a gateway to creativity. But then other times, boredom the lack of stimulation, the lack of satisfaction can lead us astray, right? Boredom can lead us on a path that we don't want to be in. Boredom can lead us on a path where we're trying to find satisfaction out of other things just to try to fill the gap or fill that satisfaction loop because we're not doing what we should be doing, right? So if we find ourselves living a life where we're just not using our skills, our talents, I believe if we're not using those things in a way that we feel like is meaningful for us, I feel like we are prone to get bored. And when we're prone to get bored, we're prone to wander. Right? We're prone to wander. So, one of the reasons why this is so important is because we want to live a life that is intentional and not live a life of just wandering. Why, Josh? Why? I just want to wander. It's okay. I'm good with wandering. Well, I think when we wander, we can it will lead us sometimes to this next feeling, and it's this feeling number 2 of getting stuck. Right? It's this feeling of getting stuck as we wander sometimes aimlessly, bored. We can wander into circumstances that may not even be for us. We could find ourselves in trouble sometimes, just wander into things that may not be for us. But then sometimes we could just wander our way into feeling stuck and being somewhere, going so far down a road, down a pathway where we're just like, where and why am I here and how did I get here, right? I think often, for those of you who don't know, I am a Christian, and there's a Bible story actually, which whether or not you subscribe to the Bible, don't subscribe to the Bible, I think it's very interesting. But there's a Bible story of this person named David, right? And David was a king, and King David, and at this time, David, there was this. It tells a story where David was supposed to be at war, right? And instead of being at war, David was home. And David was home, and while David was home, he was looking out of his window, and he's seen this lady bathing, and David winds up getting into some trouble, and his story goes in a whole other path just because he was somewhere that he wasn't supposed to be. He was supposed to be on the battlefield, but he was at home, and he was just wandering, and he winded up wandering into something that was never meant for him, right? So I think that's just the importance of why we want to be trying to create a life that we actually want to live, a life that is designed around our talents and our skills and the things that we're actually good at and the things that we actually want, what we actually not want, not what others want for us, right? Because we're going to fight that feeling of feeling bored, and then we're going to fight that feeling of feeling stuck, right? And then when we feel stuck, it just feels like, man, we don't know what to do next. I think emotions that come right after that, especially for me, when I feel stuck, I feel lost. I feel confused. I feel sad. There are just a lot of emotions that come with that. So I am curious about what it looks like for us to be living a life that is more suited to what we are wired to do. I'm curious what it looks like. I'm curious if on the other side of that, will that bring more joy? Will that bring more happiness? And we know that happiness is an emotion that we're supposed to feel all the time, but will that help us to navigate when life gets hard? Will us at least being and doing what we're wired to be doing give us the sense of peace and joy to just be able to navigate the hard that life is going to inevitably throw at us, right? And I'm curious if you're interested in moving from a life of feeling stuck and feeling bored and feeling lethargic and feeling like you don't know, that you feel like you're not making the contributions that you want to be making. I wonder if you are interested in taking that next step into the other side of what could look like peace, what could look like joy, what could look like contentment, right? And maybe your next steps in that is starting to identify what your skills, your talents, and the things that you contribute are, and starting to try to design a life where you can be actually utilizing that. Let me use an illustration real quick. Think of a Steph Curry, right? Think of Steph Curry, one of the greatest three-point shooters, for those of you that don't know, in the NBA that we've probably ever seen. I liken this whole topic to, it's like Steph Curry, who is a three-point shooter. And imagine he is on the Golden State Warriors. And imagine his coach says, Steph, you can do everything but shoot threes. We want you to do everything on the court, but do not shoot any threes. I mean, you're just like, Steph that's what he does. That's what he does. Why would you limit Steph from doing what he does? Why would you limit Steph from the impact that he was able to make? Just how we see how basketball players play now, like, and they just shoot from deep threes. That is Steph. That is all Steph that they're watching, right? So that is the life that I am curious about, what it looks like for us to step into that, and with our full talents and our what our skills and how we are uniquely designed to live that. So that is why I feel like it is extremely important to be stepping into that, right? So when we're not living in that, just to recap, when we're not living in that, we feel bored, we feel stuck. When we start to live in that, we feel a sense of joy. We feel a sense of peace. We feel a sense of contentment. We're able to handle the hard a little bit better that life gives us as life throws that at us. So my question to you is, how do we do this? You're probably asking, okay, Josh, I hear what you're saying. I'm buying into the program. How do I start doing that, right? So first, we just have to start identifying what are the skills, what are the talents, what are the things that we're good at, right? What are the, not only that, what are the principles that are super important to you? What are the non-negotiables for you? What are the values that you feel like you need to live by? And then as you start to figure out what those things are, how do you start practicing those things so that you can see those things down the line? I was reading this one book, and it was talking about teamwork, and it says teamwork ultimately comes down to practicing a small set of principles over a long period of time. Practicing a small set of principles over a long period of time. I think that's the same for creating the life that you want. You have to figure out what are the small set of things that you can do, and how do you practice those things over a long period of time. And moving forward, I'm going to get into some of the things that I think about when I'm thinking through the principles that are important to me, and kind of this is what's going to kind of guide this podcast as we move forward, and what we're going to be thinking about as we kind of navigate and move forward all of this, right? So we talked about why this is important. Now we're going to start talking about what are the principles that kind of make that up, that we can be practicing those small set of principles. I'm going to talk about what those principles are for me and this podcast as we move forward. So being authentic. And here's how I'm going to define authentic, okay? So authentic is the daily practice of forsaking who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. The daily practice of forsaking who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. All right. So authenticity is something that I realize as I navigate life, for good or for bad. I want to live a life where I am truly embracing who I actually am and how I'm actually wired to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing, not others people's perceptions of who they think I am, who they think I should be, right? And this has just been made clearly known to me. And I'm just like, man, in order to live the life that I would like to live, to create the life that I will want, this is a non-negotiable and what seems to be true. And this actually impacts a lot, right? My ability to be authentic is directly correlated to my ability to be clear with others. My ability to be authentic is directly correlated to my ability to have conflict with others. If I don't know what I actually want, I cannot communicate to somebody else and have proper conflict with them if I'm not sure on what it is that I actually want, right? My ability to be authentic is directly correlated to my ability to have boundaries. Again, if I'm not true to what it is that of how I'm wired and what works for me, then I'm robbing the other person the ability to be able to do that. So number one is being authentic. And we're going to talk more about that down the line. So one of the things that I try to practice, one of the principles that I try to live by as I navigate different circumstances in life is am I daily forsaking who I think I'm supposed to be and embracing who I actually am? That's being authentic. All right. And the next one is this: being courageous. Being courageous. And here's how we're going to be defining courage. Courage is speaking honestly and openly about who we are, about what we're feeling, and about our experiences. Speaking honestly and openly about who we are, about what we're feeling, and about our experiences, good and bad. It's kind of funny because I'm married, and I remember as we were navigating our dating phase of things, one of the things I talked to my now wife about was just, hey man, like I know that here. I know that I don't always get things right, but I think one thing that is important for me is that there is at least an opportunity for us to talk things out. Good, bad, whether it was a mistake, whether it wasn't a mistake. I need the ability to be able to talk about it in real time. I need to be able to sit and say, hey man, I did this, or hey man, I think this was probably wrong, or hey man, I think I probably did this right. But I need to be able to, I want to have the courage to be able to have those conversations, and I don't want to pretend like something is working when it's not working. I don't want that, right? And that's just part of being courageous, and that's part of one of the principles that I've adopted in my life as far as how I try to navigate certain circumstances that I find in life. It's about when it's comfortable, when it's uncomfortable, speaking honestly about who I am, what I'm feeling, what my experience is, be it good or be it bad, right? That goes back to those set of principles that I'm trying to practice over a long period of time. And then that is being courageous. And then I think the last thing that I want to chat on and talk about is about having integrity, okay? Having integrity. So integrity, how we're going to define integrity is this: choosing courage over comfort, choosing what's right over what's fun or easy, choosing to practice your values rather than simply professing them. There's a lot of Brene Brown definitions right here. I'm just going to give you full disclosure, let you know, all right? So integrity, essentially making things harder on yourself, making things harder on yourself for the sake of your values, for the sake of what you feel like is going to be right long term. Another way I like to put that is good trouble, making good trouble, disrupting the peace of today for disrupting the false peace of today for true peace tomorrow, right? Integrity. And I think this one is a tough one for me to live out sometimes, because it sometimes means making trouble where you're not trying to intentionally make trouble, but you're just trying to actually define reality and bring truth to a situation. All right. So we talked about being authentic, courageous, with integrity. Authentic, courageous, with integrity. Authentic, courageous, with integrity. Those are the set of principles that I am trying to apply over time, over a long period of time. And I know that if I can apply those things to my life will start to look more and more of what I would like it to look like. Now, I know earlier I talked about your skill sets, your talents, your passions. I think all of those things fall within those things. But I'm having a real-time revelation of it. I'm having a real-time revelation of what I am talking about. And I think what I realize is skills, talents, passions, all of those things are important and key to helping to create the life you want. But if you don't get down to the root and the foundation of what is actually moving the needle on things, what are the values that are actually driving the thing, I think we may miss some things. Here, I want to give you an example. I want to give you an example of this. I'm going to try to illustrate this for you so it makes a little bit more sense, right? So I can just sit and say, hey, man, I want a life that looks like this. I want this many, I want a house that looks like this. I want to be married. I want to be working this type of job. I can have all of these specific individual goals, which I think are important. And I think we need to be clear on some of what those things are. But then also I can just have those goals. That's one thing. I can just have those goals. Or in addition to having those goals, I can have a set of principles that are going to guide my life, and they're not going to be such specific one-off things, but they're going to help inform how I think through my marriage, how I think through the house that I want, how I think through all of those things. So it's just very interesting to think through those things. So what I am saying and what I am encouraging is that we think through our skills, talents, and practical things to help us create the life that we want. But then we also think through our foundational things that will help us drive and move us towards the life that we want. Now, that was a lot of information. That was a lot of thinking and pondering around this idea of trying to create the life that we want. But here's what I know. Here's what I know moving forward for us as we continue to navigate this podcast, right? I want to explore more of those three things that I talked about. I want to talk about what it looks like to be authentic, what it looks like to be courageous with integrity. I want to look at how to be those things, how to start to continue to live out those things. And I want to look at the things that are going to get in the way of us doing those things, because I think that being authentic, being courageous with integrity, those things for me lead me to love others well, right? It leads me to love others well. If I can't be honest with who I am and what I really want, then I can never honor you by letting you know what those things are, right? If I can't be courageous enough to speak up and be honest about where we are in our relationships as we deal with friends and people and all of those things, then it's going to be very hard for me to be loving you in those relationships. If I can't have integrity, which is choosing courage over comfort, choosing what is not easy over what is fun. If I can't have that in times when I navigate with different people, then it's going to be very hard for me to love you well. So I think all of these things come back to love, and I'm excited to be able to chat more about this as we navigate this podcast. Well, I am grateful for y'all for listening, for hanging, for being on this journey. Excited to hear from y'all. If you have thoughts, keep feedback, comments, let me know. I'm so excited to continue on this journey. Y'all have an amazing rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Crazy Good Talks podcast. You can watch more of this podcast on YouTube. You can also find Josh across all social media.